Good evening. Tonight we are learning Maseches Yoma, Daf Lamed Ches. We're starting on the very top line of Lamed Ches Amud Aleph. The Mirza Hashem will get to the end of the parak at Lamed Ches Amud Aleph, a little bit more than a blot and a two big amudim. However, we have learned a lot of this before. It's a bit of a repeat, and it moves pretty quickly. It's all Agadata, and it's all stories. Let's jump right in. On the top line of Lamed Ches Amud Aleph, it says Nikanor Naasa Nisim L'Dal Sosav. There were miracles that took place with the doors of Nikanor, which sat in the east of what?
I think you're, yeah, no.
Nope, that's where we are. Top of Lamed Ches Amud Aleph. So Tana Rabban the Brisa writes, Ma Nisim Nasu L'Dal Sosav. What miracles took place with these doors? Amr, they said, Shahalach Nikanor L'Havi Dalsos Alexandria Shel Mitzrayim. He went down. This is where the artisans were. He went down to Alexandria in Egypt, and he had the doors designed. And then B'Chazirasa, when he was going back to Eretz Yisrael, Amar Alav Nachshol Shebiyam L'Tavo, there was a storm. Rashi says Se'ara. There was a storm that came upon his boat, and in order to lower the amount of weight, to lessen the weight, they Natlu Achatz Mehen V'Hitilu Alayam. They took one of these doors. They were huge. Remember, the doorways were 20 by 10. So this door was 20 by 5. It's a very large door. So they threw it into the water. But still, the waters were not calm. So says the Gemara, 6 lines down, Lamed Ches Amud Aleph in the Brisa, Bikshu L'Hatilas Chaverta. So the captain of the ship, he wanted to throw away the second of the doors as well to make the load lighter on the boat so that it wouldn't capsize. Amad hu v'karcha. He said, no way, I'm not, Nikanor's like, I'm not letting this happen. And he stood there hugging the door. And he said, Amar lemi tiluni ima, if you're throwing this off, you're throwing me off as well. Sounds eerily similar to the story of Yona. Just wait, it gets more. I don't know. It wouldn't have been my assumption. I don't know. Miyad, once he said that, once he showed his willingness, his commitment to stick with the second door that they were about to toss, Miyad, so the storm stopped, and he really regretted having thrown the first door overboard. When they got to the port in the city of Akko, the first door that they tossed showed up at the port of Akko, followed the boat. Okay, how is that possible? It's derech nes. V'yesh omrim, some say no, and mamish like the story of Yona and the whale. V'yesh omrim, beria shebiyam v'lo asav hikiyasa liyabasha. There was an animal that actually swallowed the door whole and then spit it back out on the dry land when they got to Akko. Okay, what's the overlap here between this? You have to ask Rabbi Schechter for the gematrias. I don't know, but there is definitely an overlap between this story and the story of Yona. Extremely similar. Amar Shlomo, on these doors, there's a pasuk in Shir Hashirim that reads, Koros batenu arozim, rahitenu birosim. Rahitenu birosim, what does that mean? The doors were birosim, al tikri birosim ala berias yam. That the doors traveled inside an animal, namely this second approach in the Brisa, that the door was swallowed, the first door was swallowed by an animal and was spit back out. Therefore, what is the result of all of this? First of the widest lines on Lamed Ches Amud Aleph says the Gemara as follows. Therefore, all the doors were made out of gold. However, this door was the exception to the rule. It was made out of copper. Says the Gemara, really the reason why it wasn't because of Nithim, it was because the copper was very shiny. Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov Omer, quite similarly, it was a very refined type of nechoshes, and therefore it shined very brightly, just like gold did. End of the Gemara up to the Mishnah, 1/4 of the way down on Lamed Ches Amud Aleph. So in the previous Mishnah, we said that there were a couple of things that were wonderful. We spoke about Nikanor, and we spoke about some other wonderful things. We spoke about Ben Gamla, who made the golden handles, all the things that Ben Katin, who made the 12 spigoted kior. A lot of good things happened. So then this Mishnah clearly is a corollary to that Mishnah. What does the Mishnah say? The Mishnah says, Ve'elu lignai, but the following groups of people, they did things that were wrong, and they're not remembered l'shvach. They're remembered lignai. Who are these people? Shel beis garmo shelo ratza lelamed es ma'aseh lechem apanim. We learned this already somewhere, that those who knew how to do the lechem apanim, it was apparently very difficult to make the shape of the lechem apanim in such a way that the breads wouldn't break. This comes up halacha l'maisa. Some of the Meforshim point out that when you're trying to get lechem mishnah, but if you were to pick up your loaf of bread from one side and the other half will just crack, that's not called shalim. It needs to be shalim mamish. So when you buy the ones from the store, they're much lighter and they're easier to hold. Great, but if you have a very dense challah, you hold it from one side. Some of the poskim say that that's problematic. Fine. Either way, he didn't want to share the recipe. Shal Beis Avtina says famously, the Beis Avtinas were the ones who knew how to do the Torahs. Lo ratzu lelamed es ma'asak Torahs. They didn't want to tell people how to make the Torahs. That's a big problem. What happens if they die? Fine. Number 3 in our Mishnah, Hugras ben Levi hayayodeh perek b'shir. He knew how to make a particular sound, a particular instrument. V'lo ratzu lelamed. He didn't want to teach anyone, so he's number 3. Number 4 in the Mishnah, ben Kamtar lo ratzu lelamed al ma'asak sav. As we'll see in the Gemara, he had a fascinating way of writing with each of his 4 fingers at the same time. That's a chachma. Half of us can't even write with a regular pen in one hand. This guy's got 4 pens on 4 fingers. We'll have to see exactly what was going on there. Al Rishonim in the previous Mishnah, we referenced those who did well by saying Ne'emar Zecher Tzadik Livracha, the pasuk in Mishlei. Ve'al Elu Ne'emar, but those who are in this Mishnah, those who did not do well, those who kept secrets, and those who kind of created a bit of a boys' club. It's only us, it's only our family. So there, the Gemara says, the Mishnah says that those by them we say V'shem R'shaim Yirkav, the name of the wicked shall rot or spoil. Tanu Rabbanon, 5 lines into the wide lines, 1/3 of the way down. Tanu Rabbanon. They knew how to make the lechem apanim, but they didn't want to share it with anyone. Apparently, Alexandria Shamitzrayim was the Silicon Valley of the East. Everybody there knew what they were talking about. So they wanted to figure out, okay, these guys won't share the lechem apanim. You tell us how to make the lechem apanim. So they went down to Alexandria. They knew how to do the baking, but they didn't know how to do the radia. Radia is a chachma. It's taking down the bread off of the walls. Just as a reminder, they didn't make the bread in their ovens the way that we did. What they would do is they would take some dough and they'd smack it on the side of the wall of the oven. And then just at the right time when it was ready, they'd take what would be the equivalent of a spatula and they'd wedge it in between the wall of the oven and the challah to kind of pop it off. But it was, as the Gemara Maseches Shabbos referred to, as a chachma. That was the sugya of Chatei Kadesh Yizkeh Chavercha. The Gemara Maseches Shabbos Daf Daled. Let's say that your friend puts bread in the oven, and for you to take it out would be an Isser Derabanan. But if you leave it in, they violate an Isser Deraisa. That's the sugya of Chatei Kadesh Yizkeh Chavercha. That's the sugya there. So here, what they had to do here was the Radiyat Sapas, but they didn't know how in Alexandria. The people in Egypt didn't know what to do. One of these people, they would do the burning. They would put the heat out. They put the heat on the outside, and they would cook on the outside. And the ones in Alexandria, they were cooking on the inside. What?
I didn't catch the hill.
The Nitzer Derabanan.
What is?
The Ridiyas Hapas, the process of taking the bread off of the side of the wall on Shabbos is an Nitzer Derabanan. The Gemara there and the Rishonim highlight that it's what's called a chachma. It's a particular chachma, and the action required a certain degree of skill, and that action was deemed an Nitzer Derabanan. That's the sugya over there.
So you're able to do it on Shabbos?
You're not able to do it on Shabbos. But the shaila there was, let's say that I put something in the oven on Shabbos that I should not have done. And before that thing finally cooks, you could take it out and save me from the Isser D'Oraisa of Bishul. But in order for you to take it out and save me, you have to violate an Isser D'Rabbanan, whatever it may be. So that was a shaila over there. It's not about focus. It's not allowed. Yeah. That's what the Gemara concludes.
What happens when you have 2 people doing a malacha?
At the same time, but that's based on psukim. There, the Gemara says based on psukim that if 2 people are doing malacha at the same time, that the Isser D'Oraisa is not triggered. It's an Isser D'Rabbanan.
And that, in this case right here, it's not.
No, these are 2 separate actions. There's I'm putting it in the oven, and you are trying to save me 10 minutes later. It's totally different. Right? Okay, so then says the Gemara, halalu, one of the groups pitan misapeshes, halalu ain pitan misapeshes. For one group, the bread would spoil, and for the other it would not. They didn't know how to do it. So ksheshamu chachamim badavar, they were very upset. Amru, come on, that doesn't make any sense. Nevertheless, what did the chachamim say? That even though these people were not being nice, what does it say about this family? Amru, even though the chachamim were not very happy with these people, that they were not sharing the recipe and exactly how to do it, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu that was what it was. The HaKadosh Baruch Hu set up the world in that way. We'll see a very critical hashkafa at the very bottom of this page, toward the top of the second, that speaks about this. So fine, what should they do? So fine, so they knew that they had to use these people based garmu for the lechem apanim. So shalchu lehem chachamim v'lo bo. They sent the chachamim there and they said, hey, can you please come teach us? So then kaflu, and they would not show up. Kaflu lehem tzlarim v'bo. Then they doubled their wages, and they're like, all right, fine, you made it worth my while. A 100% increase in salary is usually a good tip. That's a good way to get someone to show up. But says the Gemara, Normally they got paid a unit of 12, which was a lot at the time anyways, and now they got 24, which was exorbitant. Rabbi Yehuda, almost halfway down, Rabbi Yehuda, Omer, no, it was double, even more than that. The starting salary was 24, and today, out of stubbornness, they would only take 48. Why are you guys being so stingy with this information? We're all on the same team here. We're trying to get the lechem apanim. Why you got to be so cheap? But just tell me what's going on. You're taking all this money. Amru lehem yodin hayu shel beis abba. My family had a tradition. Shabayis zeh asi lecharev. This Beis HaMikdash is going to get destroyed. And what we were concerned about was Shema Yilmod Adam Sheina Mehugan V'Elech V'Yavod Avodas Kochavim Bekach. We were afraid that people were going to take this recipe of the lechem apanim and use the same recipe that we wanted to use for the mitzvah deraisa of lechem apanim, and they were going to use it for avodah zarah. So therefore, we're gonna keep everything close to the vest. We're not going to share with you exactly what it means. But on the following thing, while everything previously the chachamim were not happy with, on the following maskir nosan l'shvach. Here is something that they actually did that was good. That Beis Garmu, their family, may olam lo nimtzeis pas nekiya biyad b'neihem. In order to make the lechem apanim, they had extremely fine flour. So, in order to make sure that they were never accused of taking that really fine flour, they never ever had that fine of flour in their homes. So let's say that this was grade A flour. They only had grade B and worse flour in their home. That's what the Gemara says here. Nobody in their family ever used this level of grade A flour. No one should never have a claim on the family that they took the flour from the lechem apanim. Exactly halfway down in the wide lines on Lamed Ches Amud Aleph, and that brings us to the two dots right there. And that was story number one about Beis Garmu. Let's continue. Shal Beis Avtinas, we saw in our Mishnah, Lo Ratu Lalamed Al Ma'aseh Torah. They didn't want to tell anyone about the Ma'aseh Torah. So it says the Gemara, Tana Rabbanan, we have a brayta. Beis Avtinas became a Ma'aseh Torah. They knew how to make the Torah, Lo Ratu Lalamed, but they didn't want to teach it to anybody. So Shalchu Chachamim Veviu Umnin Me'Alexandra Shal Mitzrayim Vayod and Lefatim Kimosam. They went down to Mitzrayim and they said, we need you to replicate this. And they said, we know how to do the spices. We know how to get all the spices right. What they did not know how to do is they didn't know how to make the smoke billow upwards in the right way. Why? What was the problem? When it was done right by Beis Avtinas, the smoke went up like straight as a pole, straight as a stick. It was perfect. It went straight up. But like normal smoke, when it goes up, and when the Alexandria people tried to do it, the smoke went all over the place. It dissipated quickly and all over the place. And everyone was annoyed. Why are they doing that? When they heard about it, they said, what are you supposed to do? Everything was for him. And then, even though the Chachamim were annoyed that they weren't sharing how to make the Pitum HaTorah, but what are you supposed to do? They're the only ones who know how to do it. So they brought him back into the fold, and they said, fine, you have your job back. However, they were stubborn about that too. So the Chachamim said, we need you. Please come back to the Beis HaMikdash. And they would not come. And they doubled the money, and then they finally showed up. Yoma, every day, normally they got paid 12, today they got paid 24. Yehuda Omer was double that. But regularly, Omer, B'chol Yom, so why would you not teach us how to make the Torahs? So we're 3/4 of the way down. It says the Gemara, Amru, Yodin Hayu Shel Beis Abba Shabai Ze Asi Lecharev. Same exact concern. Amru, Shema Yilmod Adam Sheina Mehugan V'Yavod Avodas Kochavim Bekach. We were afraid that people were going to do Avodah Zarah. Okay, so that's what people were annoyed about. It sounds like a reasonable reason, right? It sounds semi-reasonable, but they were not willing to share, and then they were forcing the hands for money. So because of the money thing, the Mishnah says these people were of Elu Lignai, Shem Rishayim Yirkav. But the Gemara does give them one compliment. The Beis Avtinas, who was responsible for the Pitum HaTorah, what a beautiful smell. So they had a guideline in their family. Here was the good news of this family. Here was the good news about Beis Avtinas. None of the women in their families ever used this perfume. They never wore any perfume, in fact. And when they'd marry someone who wasn't part of the family, namely like a cousin, or which was halachically permissible, but when they'd marry someone who wasn't part of Beis Avtinas, Misan and Ima, they'd make a t'nai with her, Shalotis Basem, that she should never wear perfume. Why? Shalo Yomru, so that no one would ever claim to make sure that they were above the fray, that no one could ever criticize them for perfuming themselves with these wonderful combination of spices. Tanya. I saw one of the descendants of Beis Avtinas, and I dug in. Your forefathers, the Beis Avtinas, the senior leadership, they wanted to make themselves mechubad, and they wanted to minimize the Kodesh Baruch Hu. Achshav, take a look at what happened. Now Kodesh Baruch Hu, his kavod is great, and your family is done for. That's story number one. Story number two. Amar Rabbi Akiva. Sachli Rabbi Shmuel ben Luga. The following story took place with Rabbi Shmuel. He says, Rabbi Shmuel says that he went out with one of the Beis Avtinas, one of the family members of Beis Avtinas, to collect herbs from outside. The Ra'isi shebacha v'sacha. Amarti lo mibnei ma bachis. Why were you crying? Amarli kavod avosai niskarti. I remember how difficult things were for my family when their kavod was minimized because people thought that they were not being yasher. Then why were you laughing? Manavshach. If it was all bad, so why? I understand why it's sad, but why are you laughing? Because the Kodesh Baruch Hu is going to give us our place back in the Beis HaMikdash. Okay, this is great, but like you're outside collecting grass. Like, what was the trigger that made you think about this? What's going on here? What brought this on? So he answers, Amarli male ashan kenegdi. Now, if you recall, we've learned in the past that male ashan was the herb that was added to the Torah that caused for the smoke to go up perfectly straight. Male ashan was in front of him. They were in a field of grass of different herbs, and this kid from Beis Avtinas knew what he was looking at. So he's like, oh, I see the male ashan. And when I saw the male ashan, I said, I remember how hard it was for my family. And then he started laughing because I know that la'asid lavo, that my family is going to be put back in the right place. He says, can you please show it to me? Where's the male ashan? Everyone's been wondering what the magic was. And it's in front of you. Tell me what the male ashan is. So he says, Amar li, I'm not allowed. We're not allowed to show it to anyone. Story number 3. There was a particular person, and he had a Megillah. He had a scroll that had all the spices in it. It sounds like one of those projects you do in school when they tell you to go collect leaves, and you like glue them to the paper, and you bring it into your teacher. This is kind of that. Every section they had charcoal and whatever, all of the 11 spices, whatever it was, and they had all identified there. It was a little scroll that had all the spices in there that needed to be there. So they had this little book of Megillah Samimana Biyado. Amarti lo, he said to me, Ayin Ata, where are you from? Amarli, he said, Mi Beis Avtinas ani. He said, I'm from that family. They got the bad rap. What are you holding on to so tightly? You got it like all wrapped up under your arms. What's going on there? Amarli Megillah Samimana. This is my family's trade secrets. This is the book that indicates exactly what all of the Samimanim are, including seemingly Male Ashan, that extra herb that made all of the 11 go straight up. So he says, Harehuli, show me what you got. Amarli, and he gave in. When my family was around, when there were enough people in the family to trust with these trade secrets, so fine, we kept it in the family. Now you can have it. Finally, the secret's out. So when was this? This was in a generation of Rav Yochanan ben Nuri, which was around when did he live? Yochanan ben Nuri. So he was a very late Tana, I believe. And then Ukshabasi. No, that can't be. It has to be that he was a Tana. Ukshabasi v'sachti divarai lifnei Rabbi Akiva. And when I told this to Rabbi Akiva, Amar li me'ata asr l'saper b'gnusan shel elu. Now that he actually gave this to you, now that he gave you the book, the Megillah Samimanim, now you cannot disparage this family anymore. Because we see that their intentions were good. How do we know? Because he didn't go to the grave with his secrets. The family had died out. He was one of the last descendants, and he gave you the Megillah Samimanim. Why did they charge extra money? Good question. But we see, Bigadol, we see that their intentions were good. Then says the Gemara, Mikan, from here we can see, from where? We've said like 18 stories in the Gemara. What's going on? Take a look at Rashi. Rashi here on the outer margin, uniquely, this page only has Rashis, 2/3 of the way down. We're going back a little bit. What did we see? Both by Beis Garmo and Beis Avtinas, the Chachamim did not want them to be in the Beis HaMikdash. But we didn't have a choice. They were the experts, so HaKadosh Baruch Hu brought them back What are you supposed to do? Hashem's in charge. We're not in charge. So Mikan Amru, from the fact that we see that the Chachamim wanted to expel them from their roles, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, sorry, they're staying in. So what does Ben Azai say? B'shimcha yikarucha, your name will be called. Uvimakomcha yoshivucha, you'll always be put in your place, turning to the top of Lamed Ches Amud Beis. Umishalcha yivnu lach, they'll always give you what's yours. And here the Gemara gives us a hashkafa that can help us to diffuse our frustration and anger in scenarios when things don't go our way. Ein adam nogeh b'muchan lechavero. No one can take that which is prepared for you. Ve'in malchus nogas bechaverta afilu kimalonima. Even one hair is a difference. That even that difference doesn't exist. Whatever a person deserves is what they will get. Whatever a person doesn't deserve, they won't get. And there's nothing that another person can do about it. Kadosh Baruch Hu can change it. We can daven to change gzeras. But if you do something to me, so then you're just a messenger, because you can't actually change my fate in that way. Only HaKadosh Baruch Hu can do that. And that's the message that Ben Azai learned from our Gemara. 3 lines down on Lamed Ches Amud Beis. Hugras ben Levi, what was going on there? Tanya, Kshehu nosein kolo ben ima, when he was singing with a beautiful sound, machnis godlo, he take his thumb letoch piv into his mouth, umaniach etzbo bein hanimin, he would put his finger between the hairs on his mustache, achayu echav kohanim nizrakin bevas rosh la'achoreim. This sound was so magical and so gorgeous, they were thrown back by the beauty. We don't know exactly what it means. Was it a whistle? It's hard to tell. It's got to be a whistle of some kind. No, you're sticking your thumb on the top of your mouth. It's very hard to tell exactly what's going on. So that's what he wouldn't share. What Maseches are we talking about? Amru Allah used to say about him, so we take 4 quills, one in between each of the bends of his finger, right? He'd take 4 quills in his hand and close his hands around the quills. And what he would do is, Teva shel daled osios haya koseves bevas achas. He knew how to mamish like wriggle his fingers in the perfect way. He could write anything he wanted. He could write any 4-letter word, yudke vavke, whatever it was. He was writing any 4 letters. Perfect. Amru lo ma roish shelo lalamed. Why are you keeping this one? Isn't even like a requirement. Like, why are you keeping this a secret? Says the Gemara. Kulan matzu tshuva l'divrei bar kamtsar lo matza tshuva l'dvarav. He didn't have a real answer as to why. So again, that's lignite. That's not nice. Al rishonim nemar zecher tzadik l'bracha, as we already said, that in the previous Mishnah, all of the good people over there, the ones who made the gold handles, whatever we learned yesterday. So those people that we say about them tzadik zecher tzadik l'bracha. Ve'al ben kamtsar v'chaver nemar rishem yirkav. Now let's analyze that pasuk a quarter of the way down. The pasuk reads, "Mai v'shem Rishayim Yirkav." What does it mean that the name of the evils, in plural, Yirkav? So Amar Rabbi Elazar, terrible story. Rakvivus ta'ale b'shmos, and there should be some spoil with a person's name. Delo maskinan b'shmai. We shouldn't even use their name. So Masi Ravina. Wait 1 second. We know of people who have terrible names. I've seen a lot of terrible names. We all heard that famous story that Rabbi Robinson told of this baby that almost got the name of Chizkiyahu Chava, because his parents wanted him to be all prepared just in case, the gender, unbelievable. So the Moel, who was my Rebbe, said, B'shum panav v'ofen, I will not do a brick like that. You're giving him a boy's name. We're not even discussing. So sometimes names can be very problematic. I made the mistake as a young Moel to not ask the family what the name of their baby was. And this family says the baby's name is Hoach Mivorach. And I'm all in the middle of Kriyas Hashem. V'yikarei shemo b'Yisrael. No. Hoach Mivorach. Never did that again. Now I always ask what the baby's name is. Anyways, that kid's name is Koach Mevorach. It's not as bad luck as being called Chizkiyahu Chava, though. Who do I trust?
You ask them again just to make sure, like at the time?
Anyways, the Gemara here presents a scenario where we see that a person's name was used and the person was not a good person. Masi Ravina, 2 lines before the wide lines. Maisa b'doeg, Doeg ha'adomi in Tanakh was not good here. Doeg ben Yosef, sheinichu aviv ben katan li'imo. His father passed away and left him as a young orphan with his mother. B'chol yom, every day, ha'isa'imo modadato b'tfachim. His mother would measure the height and the size of this child, and whatever he grew in any one particular day, she v'nosenes mishkalo shel zav lebeis hamikdash. Givaldik, what great chinuch! Every time you grow, I want to give something to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. However, then Nebuchadnezzar took over. Things in Yerushalayim got dire, and this story takes a very rapid turn. Uchshegavar oyev, when Nebuchadnezzar took over and things got very bad, and the starvation took people to the nth degree, like we know from Eicha. So then, tabachto va'achalto, again, these things are out of our minds. It's so hard to understand that type of starvation that she slaughtered and consumed that child. This is what we say on Tisha B'Av. Come, what's going on here? Mothers are, this is crazy. And then Meshiba Ruach HaKodesh, yeah, things are terrible right now. Now, the anticlimactic part of this story is that the child's name was Doeg. Yet, nevertheless, that's actually the question of the Gemara. You said 3 lines ago that Rishem Yirkav, that we don't give these names to people. Yet this kid had the name of Doeg. Says the Gemara, how far do I have to look for an answer? Look what happened to the kid. The fact that he was given the name doesn't make it good. Look at the result. It was a terrible result. So we should make sure we give our kids a good Jewish names after nice, good people. Make it clean and simple. Fine. Says the Gemara, almost halfway down. Amar Rebbe Lazar, Tzadik me'atzmo v'rasha mechavero. A tzaddik, when we refer to him, it talks about himself, and a rasha, it refers to other rishayim as well. Tzadik me'atzmo d'chsiv zecher tzadik livracha in the singular. V'rasha mechavero d'chsiv v'shem rishaim yirkav. One can lead bad to the other. Why isn't it the tzaddik can lead good to other tzaddikim? That's a good question, but the psukim don't get explained that way in the Gemara. Amar le Ravina lehahume rabbana dava mesader agadata kame. Ravina was a great Amora. And there was a Rav in front of him who knew all of the Agadatas. And that was the style back in the day, is that a lot of the Torah, they had people who were Bikim in particular Masechtas. So this person was a Baki in Agadata. So Ravina says to this expert in Agadata, he says, what's the Mare Makom for this idea of Zecher Tzadik Livracha? So anyone who's ever learned Tanakh should know that this is the pasuk in Tanakh. It's a pasuk in Mishlei. So Amar Le, Zecher Tzadik Livracha. What do you mean? Where does it come from? It's a pasuk in Mishlei. Why, you're Ravina. Why are you asking me that question? I'm sure you know Tanakh by heart. He says, of course, that's not what I meant. Mido Raisa Minolan. Where's the mashmos in the Torah that when there is a zecher of a tzaddik, that it's livracha? Says the Gemara, Dechsiv. Hashem Amar Hanechaseni me Avram Asher Ani Yosem. I'm not going to keep anything from Avram. That's a zecher tzaddik. We mentioned the tzaddik. What's the bracha? Uchtiv ve'Avraham hayo yihya l'goy gadol ve'atzum. Beautiful. We see zecher of a tzaddik is the bracha. Beautiful. The psukim indicate as much. We know Hamil Sadam Rabban and Shem Rishayim Yirkav. What?
Rashi, where one of the
What do you mean?
On the passage,
Rashi al Torah.
Rashi al Torah.
Oh yeah.
It says 2 shradim. 1 shradim is zecher tzaddik.
Yeah, beautiful. Obviously pulling from this particular medrash. So then on the flip side, we go to the other pasuk about Shem Rishayim Yirkav. So Ravina continues to speak to the expert and Agadata Minaha Milsa Damar Rabbanan Shem Rishayim Yirkav, halfway down Lamed Chesed Beis. It says the Gemara, Amar Le, Taksiv B'Shem Rishayim Yirkav, it's a pasuk in Tanakh. So Ravina retorts back, no. Midoraisa Minolan, where do we see that there's a B'Shem Rishayim and then there's Yirkav? Tichsiv Hal Al Sedom, that's a place of Rishayim. Uchsiv Anshe Stom, Raim V'Chatayim La Hashem, Me'od in the plural. Anshe Stom in the plural. So there we see B'Shem Rishayim Yirkav. Amar Rebbe Lazar, Tzadik Dar Ben Shnei Rishayim V'Laman B'Maseim. There was a tzaddik who lived amongst 2 Rishayim and did not learn from them. And then there was a Rasha, the opposite is also true. There was a Rasha who was Dar Ben Shnei Tzaddikim, but also V'lo Lamad Mimaseim, which is bad. If you're a tzaddik and you don't learn from the people around you, you're a big tzaddik. If you're a Rasha and you don't learn from the tzaddikim around you, you're a big Rasha. So who are these people? Tzaddik Dar Ben Shnei Rishayim V'lo Lamad Mimaseim Ze Ovadia. Doesn't say that, excuse me, it says Ovadia. And Rasha Dar Ben Shnei Tzaddikim V'lo Lamad Mimaseim Ze Esav. He was surrounded by tzaddikim, right? He had a brother, he had a father. Nevertheless, Esav remained in his ways. Rabbi Lazar, Amar Rabbi Lazar, mi birchasan shel tzaddikim atala miklala l'rishayim, umi kilulasan shel rishayim atala mibracha l'tzaddikim. That's the inverse. From the bracha of a tzaddik, you learn about a klala from rishayim, and the opposite is also true. Mi birchasan shel tzaddikim atala miklala l'rishayim, d'chsiv ki yodati l'man asher yetzaveh, uchsiv basrei bayomer Hashem za'akas sedom va'amor ki rabba. We went from a bracha to a klala. And the opposite is also true. Mikalilas and Shorashem Atalam Bracha L'Tzadikim D'Chsiv Anshe Stom Ra'im V'Chatoim L'Hashem V'Hashem Amar L'Avram Acharehi Pared Lo Me'imo. So therefore we see, and that was the bris bein abisar. So from the klala came the bracha. Amar Rabbi Lazar Afilu B'Shvil Tzadik Echad Olam Nivra. Even for one tzaddik, the whole world could have been created. Shneimar Vayar Elokim Es Orki Tov. Pasuk and Bereshis. Vein Tov El Tzadik. We know that the word Tov always refers to the righteous. Shneimar Imru Tzadik Ki Tov. So therefore, we see that even for one tzaddik, the whole world could have been created. Amar Rabbi Lazar calling Mishakeach Darmi Talmudo. Everyone who is Mishakeach, they forget the Torah that they learn. Gorem galas labana. This creates an exile for children. If you forget your Torah, I'm also going to forget your children. Rahman al-Islam. Should try to remember everything we learn. I have a neighbor, Shali Lichman, a Chashav Yid. He learns Daf Yomi. Every Rashi in Tosfos, I think every Tosfos, certainly every Rashi. On Shabbos, he does a chazar of all 7 blot. Every Shabbos. Unbelievable. That's a great chazar. He's holding. It's unbelievable. First of the very long lines, Lamed Chesam and Beis, the Gemara continues, Rabbi Abo, Amar Moridin Oso Migdulaso. And not only that, if a person forgets their Torah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to lower their stature. Shneimar ki ata hadas mo'asta. You didn't clearly appreciate all of the dots, all the knowledge that I'm teaching. I'm not going to remove you from the post of servicing me. Amar Rav Chia bar Abba, Amar Rav Yochanan, in Tzadik niftar min ha'olam ad shenivra Tzadik kamoso. Baruch Hashem. When a tzaddik is about to die, so another tzaddik is born. Another tzaddik is generated to make sure that we still have what we need here in this world to help us navigate the difficult elements of life. Before Eli died, before of course the metaphor of the sun setting, Zarcha Shimsho Shel Shmuel Haramasi. Then we had the bright light of Shmuel Haramasi. Amar Rav Chia bar Abba, Amar Rav Yochanan, Ra Kadosh Baruch Hu shetzadikim u'atim. When he saw that there weren't enough tzadikim in the world, Amar Ushasalam B'chol Dor V'dor, he made sure that in every generation there were tzadikim. Shenamar ki Lashem Mitzukei Eretz V'yashas Aleim Seva. That in every land there were these pillars of great tzadikim. Amar Rav Chia bar Abba, Amar Rav Yochanan, Afilu B'shvil Tzadik Echad Olam Yizkayim, as we already saw earlier, but in a different frame. One tzadik could be the reason why the whole world remains in existence. Shenamar B'tzadik Yisod Olam. Rav Chia Didei Amar, he says it's from a different pasuk. How do we know that even for one tzaddik the world can be kept alive? Because it says Mehacha 5-6 lines from the bottom. Ragle Chasidav Yishmor. Says the Gemara, Chasidav is plural. You want to say because there's one tzaddik the world is miskay, but Chasidav is plural. Says the Gemara. Yep, that's how we read it. Chasidav Tuva Mashma. That's our question. Chasidav implies more than one. So answers the Gemara. Amar Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak. Chasido, Ksiv, the Kri and the Ksiv are not the same. The Ksiv doesn't have that Yud before the Vav, it's Chasido, it reads as in the singular. So therefore, even though the Kri is as it's read, but in the Ksiv, it looks like Chasido. When you look without vowels, it looks like that. And therefore, we can make the assumption that even if there was only one tzaddik, the world could be kept alive. Rav Chia bar Abba, Amar Rav Yochanan, Amar Rav Chia bar Abba, Amar Rav Yochanan, Kevan Sheyasru V'Tnoso Shel Adam Lo Chata. Once a person has lived out most of their years and they have not yet sinned, Shuvei Nochote, he will be able to withstand the challenge of sinning more. Shnema Ragle Chasidav Yishmor. Those who are his Chasidim, they will be protected. The Bei Rav Shila, 3 lines from the bottom. Bei Rav Shila Amre. Kevan Shebali Yado Davar Avera Pam Rishon V'Shnei Ve'Enochote. If a person is exposed to an Avera once and then twice and they do not do a sin, Shuvei Nochote, they've already made a kinyan. It almost seems like the language of Chazaka. We're seeing the 3rd time he's successful. Hashem. It says the Gemara, Shneimar Ragle Chasidav Yishmor, the same pasuk again, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will protect his Chasidim to make sure that they don't do Averas. Amar Reish Lakish, Mai Dechsiv Im Leleitzim Hu Yalit V'La'anavim Yitein Chein. What does that mean? It says the Gemara, Balatame, a person who wants to become a Tameh, Poskin Lo. He has an opening to do so. Person doesn't want to be a mutzlach, they want to be a mushchas instead. Yeah, it's for the taking. However, balataher misayin oso. Kodesh Baruch Hu is not going to help you become a rasha, but you always have the choice. You have the bechira chavshis in order to make those decisions. Absolutely. But if you're looking to be a mutzlach, you want to be successful. Balataher misayin, famous Gemara, that when a person shows an inkling of desire for closeness, the Kodesh Baruch Hu says, "Great, come close, but you don't have to take all of the necessary steps, just a few steps in the right direction, then the Kodesh Baruch Hu will prepare for the embrace." But again, that's our Bechira Chavshis, as the Rav Dessler speaks about it, as the Nekudas HaBechira, that there are certain areas we don't have free will everywhere. A lot of us have been Shomer Shabbos our whole lives, and we don't have a Yetzer Hara to violate Shabbos. That's not called free will anymore. Baruch Hashem. We become a tzaddik in those areas. And in other areas, we're never going to be successful yet, because we're not there yet. Whatever they are, let's say, hopefully not by Lashon Hara, but there are people who are not yet in a place where they can't stop, or not yet in a place where they can stop speaking Lashon Hara. So but in the middle, that's where our Nekudas HaBechira, that's where he speaks about this Michtam Eliyahu. Last line. Great mashal in the Gemara. You have people who are selling neft ve'afar simon. Neft smells terrible, and afar simon smells amazing. Neft is like tar. It's like kerosene. It smells what? Naphtha. Naphtha. That's tar or that's it? What you're saying?
It's a flammable liquid.
Oh, it's an English word.
Yeah.
Oh, an English word. Okay, fine. Got it. It says the Gemara, when the guy's in the store and balim dod neft, he says to the store owner, I'd like to buy a liter of neft. This stuff smells terrible. He's like, great. Measuring cups in the corner. He says, Omer lo medora tala atzmecha. You can do the measuring yourself. I don't need all the bad smell. Balim dod afar simon. But if he's like, oh, I'd like to buy the afar simon, which smells amazing. He's like, oh, I got it for you. Don't worry. Omer lo hamtein liad shem dodi mach. Don't worry, I'll help you. Let me carry it for you. We can all smell great at the end of this deal because you're buying something that smells good. When a person does an avera, it is mitamtem. It ruins. I don't know what the English translation is. It what? Obstructs. Is that what it says there? Mitamtemes in the R scroll. That's what it says. Blocks. It's not good. That's what the point is. It's not good. Mitamtemes timtum halev is it's a confusion. That's what we call in halacha. A tumtum is a person who seems to have infused gender. We don't know exactly what they are. Physically, we don't know what they are. An androgynous is someone who clearly is manifesting both genders. A tumtum, we don't know. So this is covered over, exactly, but we can't see it. It's confusing. So I guess maybe that application could be, I don't know. But it's not good for the heart. Shal adam shenemar v'lo setamu uvahem v'nitmeisem bam. Al tikrim v'nitmeisem with an aleph, elav and a tamtem, that it can create this blockage for your heart. Tanu rabbanon. Al tetamu v'hem v'nitmeisem bam. Adam metame atzmo me'at metameno so harbe. If a person does a little bit of tuma, then he brings upon himself more tuma. And not only that, but milamata mitameno so. When he does a little bit milamata, mitameno so milamala. If he does the tuma down here, then it affects him upstairs. But olam hazeh mitameno so olam haba can affect him upstairs. This is like the yesod of our lives, is that we have to remember that there's something after this. This isn't the spitz. This is the prosdor, as it's referred to in Pirkei Avos. This isn't the end game. This is the middle game. We're just on the way, picking up gems along the way. So the Gemara is reminding us that just remember that this is the prosdor. We have to keep focus on that. Tanu Rabbanan. Vizkadashtem v'sem kedoshim. What does that pasuk mean? That you should be sanctified. Adam kadesh atzmo. Me'at mekachano so harbe. You look for a little kedusha, you open up yourself to a lot of kedusha. Milamata, if you look for it down here, mekachano so milamala, then upstairs you'll get it as well. You do it here in this world, then mekachano so lolamava, then it will sanctify you for the next world as well. Hadran Allah, Omer Lahem Amamuna, Yiratum should come back to this daf in 7.5 years. Wishing you all a beautiful